The spring of 2025 enveloped the Earth in a veil of anxiety, like a premonition of an impending storm that could not be stopped. Geopolitical conflicts smoldered like coals under ashes, ready to flare up with renewed vigor and tear apart the fragile fabric of international relations. Economic crises undermined the foundations of societies. Millions of people lost their jobs, homes, savings, and with them their faith in a stable future. Environmental disasters became more frequent and devastating. Forest fires devoured entire regions, floods flooded cities, melting glaciers raised the level of the oceans, and the disappearance of ecosystems threatened food security. The world teetered on the edge of the abyss, where every wrong step could be the last. The leaders of the countries, immersed in their political chess, fought for influence, resources, and power, unaware that the real threat would come not from their offices, but from the cold, silent depths of space, where the stars held secrets older than humanity itself. The three leaders whose names made headlines in the world's media, Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, and Vladimir Zelensky, ruled their countries, solving, as it seemed to them, the most important tasks of their time. But fate, like a great playwright, has already written a script for them that will overshadow all their previous achievements and unite them in the struggle to save humanity. It all started with an alarming message from an international network of telescopes located in the Andes, Hawaii, Australia, and low Earth orbit. Astronomers have discovered a giant asteroid named Apophis, after the ancient Egyptian god of chaos and destruction. This cosmic giant, the size of a small city, about 15 kilometers in diameter, raced towards Earth at a speed of 30 kilometers per second. Its trajectory, calculated with frightening accuracy by supercomputers from NASA, the European Space Agency (ESA), and Roscosmos, indicated an imminent collision 6 months later, in November 2025. A blow of such power could wipe out entire continents, raise dust clouds that block sunlight for decades, and trigger a global extinction comparable to the catastrophe that killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Simulations showed that the impact energy would amount to trillions of megatons in TNT equivalent, causing earthquakes above magnitude 10, tsunamis hundreds of meters high, and volcanic activity that would change the planet's climate. Scientists around the world sounded the alarm. Traditional methods of protection, nuclear missiles, kinetic strikes, laser installations, or even attempts to deflect using solar sails, were either too risky or not effective enough for an object of this scale. The risk of asteroid fragmentation could lead to multiple impacts, turning the Earth into a mosaic of craters where survival would become impossible. The world froze in anticipation of a miracle, and it came in the form of a discovery that turned all ideas about the possible upside down. In the remote Siberian taiga, in an abandoned crater hidden under a layer of earth, ice and ancient pine trees, Russian geologists who were exploring rare earth metals for new space technology stumbled upon an artifact unlike anything created by man. The device, called the Key of the Titans, was covered with complex, iridescent symbols that seemed to move under the observer's gaze, creating the illusion of living text. It pulsed with a soft silvery light, emitting a low, almost musical hum that could be felt in the bones, and radiated energy that modern spectrometers, quantum analyzers, or even the most advanced particle accelerators could not explain. His signals, recorded by seismographs, were sent to Moscow, where the best cryptographers from the Kurchatov Institute, working together with colleagues from MIT in Boston and the Institute of Cybernetics in Kiev, decrypted them after weeks of continuous work. The signals indicated a connection with Apophis, too, hinting that the asteroid was not an accidental guest, but a weapon created by the ancient Titan civilization to destroy intelligent life, which they considered unworthy. The artifact wasn't just a relic, it was a tool capable of endowing a select few with superhuman abilities to stop the threat. However, activating the key required the presence of 3 leaders whose will, determination, and charisma could withstand its energy. Why exactly 3? The deciphered texts hinted that the Titans believed in a balance of power, mind, will, and heart must unite to resist chaos. Russia, the United States and Ukraine, despite deep political differences, mutual distrust and years of strained relations, decided to entrust the mission to their leaders, Putin, Trump and Zelensky. This decision caused a storm of controversy in the world's media, from enthusiastic headlines praising their courage to sarcastic comments predicting failure due to their contradictions, but there was no time for debate, and the world reluctantly agreed that these 3 figures, despite their differences, have a unique ability to inspire and act. In a crisis, Vladimir Putin, whose coolness and strategic acumen were legendary, arrived at the crater in a Mi-26 military helicopter, surrounded by an elite team of scientists from the Kurchatov Institute, engineers from Roscosmos, and Alpha Special Forces soldiers, selected by him personally for their dedication and professionalism. He saw the artifact not only as a chance to save the world, but also as an opportunity to strengthen Russia's position as a leader in a new era where Titan technology could rewrite the rules of the global game. His cold gaze studied the key of the Titans as his team established a protective perimeter around the crater, deploying mobile radars and air defense systems to prevent third parties from interfering. His mind was already calculating dozens of scenarios, from diplomatic maneuvers to military operations, assessing how this artifact could affect the balance of power in the world. He stood on the edge of the crater, the wind fluttering his dark coat, but his face remained impenetrable, as if carved from granite. His fingers gripped the helicopter's handrails as he watched scientists carefully remove the artifact from the frozen ground, using robotic arms to avoid direct contact that could be dangerous. He knew that this moment would determine not only his legacy, but also the future of humanity. His intuition, honed by decades of management, suggested that this artifact hides more than it seems, and that its activation may require a sacrifice that no one talks about. He nodded silently to his assistant, ordering him to strengthen security and prepare backup plans in case the mission did not go according to plan. A strategy was already forming in his head, where every step was calculated, but he felt that this challenge would require something more from him than just calculation, perhaps trust in those whom he used to consider rivals. Donald Trump, who never missed an opportunity to declare his greatness, flew in on a private Boeing 757 plane, which he pompously called Trump Force. "No one can save the world better than me, believe me. This will be the greatest mission in history," he proclaimed, standing on the ramp surrounded by cameras, cameramen, and a team of engineers drawn from the best minds of MIT, Stanford, and SpaceX. His golden hair sparkled in the sun, and a confident smile did not leave his face, even when he looked at the gloomy Siberian landscape, where snow mixed with mud, and the wind howled, as if mourning the future. He saw in this mission a chance not only to save the planet, but also to go down in history as a hero whose name would be remembered forever, eclipsing all previous leaders. His posts on the X platform have already garnered millions of likes, promising the most epic rescue of all time. His team, inspired by his inexhaustible energy, worked with enthusiasm, although some scientists grumbled that his loud statements distracted from work and created unnecessary pressure. Trump, standing at the artifact, surrounded by his people, said, "It will be the greatest artifact in history, and I will make it work even better." His voice boomed, and his gestures were theatrical, as if he were performing in front of a stadium, and not in front of a group of scientists in a frozen taiga. He insisted that his arrival be broadcast live, and his subscribers on X furiously discussed his space show, while he signed autographs for his team and even several Russian soldiers who, despite strict orders, could not resist his charisma. His confidence was contagious, but his impulsiveness caused concern to those who understood how difficult the mission would be. Vladimir Zelensky, driven by a sincere desire to protect people, arrived on a modest An-26 transport plane, despite the categorical protests of his advisors, who considered the mission too dangerous and insisted that he stay in Kiev, coordinating actions from a safe bunker. A leader should be where the fate of the world is decided, he said, his voice full of determination, but his eyes betrayed the anxiety that gnawed at his heart. He was accompanied by a small but dedicated team of scientists, military personnel, and volunteers loyal to his ideals of unity and hope. Zelensky, whose charisma inspired millions, looked at the Kiev Titans with a sense of awe and heavy responsibility. He thought of families waiting to be saved, of children whose lives depended on their success, of old people praying for their grandchildren. It gave him strength, despite the doubts that gnawed at him from the inside. His fingers nervously fiddled with the edge of his green jacket, but he forced himself to smile at his team to lift their spirits. He recalled his days on stage, when his words could ignite the hearts of thousands, and prayed that this mission would be his greatest performance. He quietly told his assistant, "If we don't make it, I want people to know that we've done our best." His team, inspired by his sincerity, worked with renewed vigor, despite the harsh conditions of the Siberian spring, where temperatures dropped to -20 degrees and the wind penetrated to the bones. Zelensky, despite his fatigue, found time to talk to each member of the team, listen to their fears and remind them that their work is the hope for billions. When the three leaders simultaneously touched the key of the Titans, the artifact came to life, emitting a dazzling silver light that illuminated the crater and reflected in the low, leaden clouds, turning the sky into a mirror. Energy, ancient and powerful, poured into their bodies, rewriting their DNA and endowing each with unique abilities. It was a gift from the Titan civilization, created for those who could stop Apophis too. The leaders felt their consciousness expand, as if they had become part of the cosmos, and their bodies were filled with a new, almost divine power. Their minds were filled with images of distant worlds destroyed by asteroids, and a voice that did not belong to any language, but was understandable to everyone, said, "You are the chosen ones. Unite, or your world will fall." The artifact gave them not only abilities, but also knowledge. The asteroid was a machine of destruction, programmed to destroy the Earth, and only their combined forces could stop it. The key of the Titans vibrated, emitting a low, almost musical hum that echoed in the bones of everyone present, and then went out, leaving the leaders in silence, broken only by the howling wind. Their teams, who were watching, froze, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The air trembled with residual energy, and the snow around the artifact melted, revealing a black, almost glassy earth, as if the artifact had sucked the life out of it. The leaders, standing side by side, looked at each other, and understanding was reflected in their eyes. They are no longer just politicians, they are humanity's last hope. Upon waking up, the leaders felt that their bodies and minds had changed beyond recognition. Vladimir Putin has gained the ability to manipulate gravity. He could create gravitational fields capable of attracting or repelling objects, changing trajectories, and even compressing matter to an incredible density, turning stone into diamond or metal into dust. His strategic mind, already outstanding, became like a space navigator, capable of controlling the forces of nature with surgical precision. He called himself a gravitron, symbolizing control over the fundamental laws of the universe. His eyes now radiated a deep purple light that seemed to penetrate into the very essence of things, and every movement was filled with confidence, as if he had become part of the very fabric of the universe. When he first lifted a huge boulder into the air, just by clenching his fist, his team froze in awe, and he himself felt how gravity obeyed his will, like the strings of a giant harp. He experimented by creating miniature gravity vortices that swirled snow around him, and realized that this force could change not only the outcome of this mission, but also the very nature of human capabilities. His mind, strengthened by a new power, began to see the world as a system of equations, where each variable was amenable to his control. He spent the night standing by the artifact, and for the first time in many years, he felt something like awe of something greater than himself. He began training immediately, lifting trucks into the air, squeezing them into soccer ball-sized balls, and creating fields that deflected drone flight to understand the limits of his power. Donald Trump, to his delight, received the gift of creating energy waves capable of cutting steel like paper, or forming protective domes that can withstand tremendous pressure comparable to a nuclear explosion. His charisma, already legendary, intensified to a supernatural level. With one glance he could inspire millions to feats or calm panicking crowds, making them believe in the impossible. Declaring himself an energy magnate, he stated, "This is the greatest force in history, believe me. No one makes domes better than me." His golden hair now sparkled with blue sparks that danced in the air as if alive, and his voice sounded like thunder, echoing in the hearts of the listeners. When he first created a dome over his team, protecting them from falling debris caused by his own experiments with waves, his supporters burst into applause, and he smiled proudly as he recorded a video for X with the caption, "The greatest dome of all time." His energy infected everyone around him, but his impulsiveness sometimes made scientists nervous. He spent hours practicing how to create ever more powerful waves by destroying old tanks and planes that his team brought in for testing. His bravado-filled shows boosted morale, but his habit of being distracted by cameras sometimes made it difficult to concentrate. He insisted that his workouts be filmed for live broadcasts, claiming that people want to see greatness in action. His team, despite their fatigue, couldn't help but smile when he created another dome and shouted, "It's better than any Hollywood blockbuster." Vladimir Zelensky became the owner of the ability to control psychokinetic energy. He could create force fields, move huge objects with his mind, and strengthen people's collective will by channeling their emotions into powerful energy impulses capable of destroying mountains, creating bridges, or stopping natural disasters. His empathy allowed him to feel billions of hearts, combining them into a single rhythm, as if he were the conductor of a giant orchestra. He became a spirit of unity, the embodiment of unity and hope. His eyes shone with a soft golden light that seemed to radiate warmth, and his voice, enhanced with a new power, sounded as if the very spirit of humanity was speaking. When he first lifted a truck into the air with a single thought, his team looked at him with awe, and he felt like billions of people had become part of his strength. He felt their fear, their hope, their love of life, and it filled him with determination. His gift was not only in strength, but also in the ability to inspire, turning disparate voices into a choir. He spent hours meditating alone to learn how to filter the emotions of humanity, separating despair from faith. His speeches, even in an empty crater, made his team cry with inspiration. He was saying, "We're not just saving the world, we're giving people a chance to dream again." His words, sincere and heartfelt, became a beacon for those who lost hope. He began training by creating force fields that protected his team from artificial storms, and lifting tons of earth into the air, forming symbols out of them, hearts, stars, and hands, to remind everyone of what they were fighting for. However, the gift was accompanied by a heavy burden of responsibility. The key of the Titans gave them visions that revealed the true nature of Apophis II. The asteroid was not just a cosmic body, but a destruction machine created by the Titans millions of years ago. Its core contained dark energy capable of tearing the planet apart, and its outer shell was coated with an unknown alloy resistant to any terrestrial technology, including the most powerful nuclear warheads. The visions showed destroyed worlds consumed by fire, cities reduced to ashes, and billions of screams drowned out by the void of space. The Titans, as it turned out, were a civilization that believed in natural selection. They created asteroids to test intelligent species, and only those who could unite deserved to survive. Each vision ended with a warning etched into the language of the Titans: unity or doom. These words echoed in the minds of the leaders, making them realize that their differences were a weakness that the asteroid could exploit to increase fear and chaos on Earth. They saw images of people panic-stricken, streets filled with protests, and families torn apart by disasters caused by the approach of an asteroid. These images tormented them, especially Zelensky, whose empathy made him feel the pain of every person. He spent his nights fighting nightmares where he saw destroyed cities and heard screams that he could not drown out. At first, the leaders did not trust each other, and their new abilities only exacerbated the old political contradictions. Vladimir Putin, like Gravitron, believed that his strategic approach should dominate. He proposed using gravitational fields to deflect the asteroid into a safe orbit, sending it towards Jupiter, where it could become part of its rings, or even towards the Sun, where it would burn up without a trace. He demanded full control over the operation, claiming that only his discipline and calculation would ensure success. His cold calculation and habit of acting on his own irritated Trump, who insisted on the greatest plan in history, which included his energy waves to destroy the asteroid into pieces, which could then be sold as souvenirs or used to build space stations. His posts on Platform X, full of bravado and promises to blow up this rock in the style of Trump, garnered millions of views, but did not promote unity. He held press conferences where he promised the greatest show in space, which annoyed Putin, who valued discipline and silent efficiency. Zelensky, as a spirit of solidarity, tried to convince them to work together, but his calls for cooperation were drowned in disputes and mutual accusations. He felt the fear of humanity growing every day, and it weighed on him, making him doubt whether he would have the strength to unite such diverse leaders. He stayed awake at night, looking at the stars and asking himself if he could become what the world needed. His empathy, although it was a gift, sometimes became a burden. He felt the despair of billions, and it weighed heavily on his shoulders. He began writing letters to his family, which he kept in a safe in case the mission failed. The situation worsened when Apophis 2 entered the solar system, passing through the orbit of Jupiter and causing gravitational disturbances that led to earthquakes, tsunamis, and abnormal storms on Earth. His dark energy began to affect the planet, emitting psychotronic waves that increased panic, wreaked havoc, and destroyed people's will to resist. These waves, as scientists found out, were part of the asteroid's designed to suppress the resistance of civilizations. They penetrated people's minds, causing hallucinations about the end of the world, increasing fears and undermining faith in the future. Cities were overwhelmed by protests, economies were collapsing under the pressure of the crisis, and people were losing hope as they looked up at the sky, where the asteroid was growing brighter, like an ominous star visible even during the day. The military forces of the world, despite all their efforts, could not even get close to the asteroid. Its protective field reflected missiles, and drones burned in its aura like moths in a flame. Satellites recorded how the asteroid emitted pulses that disrupted the operation of electronics, disabling communication systems, power grids, and even medical equipment. Scientists had warned that there were only 3 months left before the collision, and every minute counted. World leaders who did not have superpowers looked at what was happening with despair, realizing that their technology was powerless. Reports of destruction came from all over the world. Tokyo was drowned in floods, New York was shaking from earthquakes of magnitude 7, and sandstorms raged in Africa caused by abnormal climate changes. In South America, the Amazon forests were burning, and in Europe, cities were covered with ash from awakened volcanoes. Humanity seemed to be on the verge of the end. At that moment, the gravitron, the energy magnate, and the spirit of unity realized that their only chance was to join forces. Their first meeting took place in Geneva, at the dilapidated convention center that became their temporary headquarters after an asteroid-triggered storm damaged the city, cutting down power lines, destroying roads and leaving thousands homeless. The atmosphere was tense. Putin sat at the head of the table, his purple eyes studying maps, trajectory graphs, and telescope data, as if he could change the laws of physics with a glance. His fingers tapped on the table, revealing hidden tension, but his voice remained steady as he offered his calculations. Trump loudly demanded to give him more space for greatness, waving his arms and talking about how his waves would smash this stone to smithereens. His energy was contagious, but his inability to listen irritated Putin, who valued order. Zelensky tried to find words that could unite them, but his voice was trembling with fatigue, and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. Using his psychokinetic power, he penetrated their emotions, sensed their doubts, fears, and hidden hopes. He closed his eyes, and images of their past filled his mind, Putin making tough decisions alone in the Kremlin office, Trump inspiring crowds with his bravado at election rallies, and himself standing on stage to give people hope in the darkest of times. "We can't do this alone," he said, and his voice, amplified by the golden light, echoed in the hall. "This asteroid feeds on our separation. He wants us to be afraid, to fight, to forget who we are. But we are humanity, and together we are stronger than it." His words, imbued with sincerity and strength, made Putin think, and Trump shut up for a moment, which in itself was a feat. His empathy, enhanced by the gift of the Titans, penetrated their hearts, reminding them of the billions of people who are waiting for salvation, of the children who paint their portraits, of the elderly who pray for their success. His words touched even Putin, who rarely gave in to emotions. Gravitron nodded, acknowledging Zelensky's point. His purple eyes sparkled, and he allowed himself a small smile, which for him was equivalent to a confession. He realized that his calculations, although impeccable, had not taken into account the human factor, faith, which can move mountains. He remembered how his strategies had once failed him because of the unpredictability of people, and decided to trust Zelensky, even though it went against his nature. He held out his hand, saying, "We'll do it together, but according to my plan." Trump grumbled and agreed, saying, "Okay, I'm in, but it's going to be the greatest team in history, believe me." His laughter eased the tension, and he slapped Zelensky on the shoulder, almost knocking him off his feet. Thus was born the Triad of Salvation, a union that was supposed to be the last hope of mankind. They shook hands, and this gesture, captured by drones, became a symbol of a new era. The world, watching them through the surviving communication channels, held its breath, hoping that these three leaders would be able to accomplish the impossible. Social media exploded with the hashtag #TriadaSave, and millions of people began sharing their hopes, prayers, and even memes where Trump stands proudly in a shining dome, Putin squeezes an asteroid with his gaze, and Zelensky soars above the earth with golden eyes, channeling the energy of humanity. They developed a plan that combined their unique abilities. The gravitron was supposed to create a powerful gravitational field to slow down the asteroid and change its trajectory, sending it away from Earth, ideally towards the Sun, where it would burn up without a trace. His ability allowed him to manipulate mass and movement, turning Apophis 2 into an obedient object, as if it were a toy in his hands. The energy magnate had to use his energy waves to break through the outer shell of the asteroid, consisting of an alloy of titans, and open access to its core, where dark energy was located. Its domes were supposed to protect the Earth from debris and psychotronic waves that the asteroid emitted, increasing panic and chaos. The spirit of unity was supposed to unite the will of all mankind, directing their collective energy into a psychokinetic strike capable of destroying the core and turning the asteroid into harmless dust. The plan required perfect timing, and they began intensive training at an abandoned military base in the Sahara Desert, far from prying eyes, where sand and heat became their testing ground. The base, once used for secret nuclear weapons tests, has been converted into a training center where scientists, engineers, and military personnel worked around the clock to support the triad. They built simulators recreating the conditions of space, and giant mock-ups of an asteroid to practice every step. Putin, like a gravitron, trained himself to manipulate gravity with jewel-like precision. He lifted tanks, trucks, and even small hills into the air, guiding them to set points to hone control. His movements were precise, and his mind calculated every variable, as if he were playing chess with the cosmos itself. His purple eyes shone brighter as he squeezed the huge boulders into tiny balls, demonstrating the power of compression. He created gravity traps that held flying debris, and experimented with fields that changed the trajectories of drones to figure out how to control an asteroid. His team, watching him, felt that in front of them was not just a man, but the embodiment of order and control. He spent his nights analyzing data about the asteroid, and his calculations became more accurate, but he knew that success depended on the coherence of the entire triad. He began teaching Trump how to use his waves in combination with gravity to enhance the effect, although it required patience, which he often lacked. He grumbled when Trump was distracted by the cameras, but deep down he began to respect his enthusiasm, which raised the morale of the team. Trump, as an energy magnate, experimented with energy waves, slicing through rocks like butter and creating domes that withstood artificial storms created for testing. His charisma inspired even the scientists who worked on his power amplifiers, although his habit of calling each dome the greatest brought smiles. He often staged impromptu shows, showing off his abilities in front of the cameras, which boosted the morale of his team. He created waves that split mountains, and domes shining with blue light that protected his team from sandstorms. His energy was contagious, but his impulsiveness sometimes led to mistakes, which Putin patiently corrected, grumbling that, "This is not a show, but a war." Trump, despite his bravado, began to respect Putin for his discipline, although he never admitted it out loud. He also began to listen to Zelensky, whose speeches helped him cope with the inner doubts that he had behind his smile. He began calling Zelensky our inspiration, and even recorded a video thanking him for making us better. This video has garnered millions of views, and Trump's fans have started calling Zelensky the golden guy. Zelensky, as a spirit of cohesion, practiced combining the emotions of his team, directing them into psychokinetic impulses that destroyed concrete walls and lifted entire buildings into the air. His speeches, even in the desert, ignited sparks of hope in the hearts of his comrades. He spent hours meditating to strengthen his connection with humanity, feeling their fear and hope. His golden eyes glowed brighter as he channeled energy, and his voice, enhanced by his psychokinetic power, sounded like a choir. He experimented by creating force fields that protected his team and lifting tons of sand into the air, forming them into shapes symbolizing unity, hearts, stars, hands, to remind everyone of what they were fighting for. He often told his team, "We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for everyone who looks up at the sky with hope." These words inspired even the most tired engineers, and his team worked with renewed vigor. He also helped Putin and Trump deal with their doubts, reminding them that their strengths are part of a common cause. His empathy allowed him to sense their internal conflicts, and he found words that restored their confidence. He spent his evenings recording speeches that were broadcast around the world to support people, and his voice became a symbol of hope. Their training became a legend. They destroyed rocks, created gravitational vortices, lifted tons of sand into the air, turning the desert into an arena of superhuman feats. The desert trembled with their might, and the sky was illuminated by flashes of their powers, Putin's purple fields, Trump's blue domes and Zelensky's golden impulses. Local Bedouins, who happened to be witnesses, talked about the desert gods, and these stories spread around the world, adding a mythical halo to the triad. They not only improved their abilities, but also learned to trust each other, which was their greatest achievement. In the evenings, around the campfire, they shared stories from their lives, argued about politics, laughed at Trump's jokes and listened to Zelensky's thoughtful stories about hope. These moments, simple and sincere, strengthened their bond, turning them from reluctant allies into true brothers in arms. They started calling each other by nicknames, Gravitron, Energy Magnate, Spirit, and it became their code, a symbol of their unity. One day, after a particularly difficult day, Trump proposed a toast to the greatest team in history, and even Putin, usually restrained, raised a mug of water, smiling. Zelensky added, "To the people who believe in us," and they drank in silence, feeling that their mission was more than just saving the world. In parallel, the triad worked with scientists to develop technologies that enhanced their abilities. Russian engineers, under Putin's leadership, created a gravity modulator, a device that could scale its gravitational fields to cosmic distances. The device, which looked like a giant metal ball, pulsed with purple light and required huge energy resources, which were provided by reactors built in record time in the Urals. American scientists, inspired by Trump, developed an energy amplifier that increased the power of its waves and domes, allowing it to operate in orbit. The device, resembling a futuristic cannon, shone with blue light and could focus its energy with incredible precision. Ukrainian specialists who worked with Zelensky created a psychokinetic repeater that allowed him to broadcast his inspiring speeches to billions of people, enhancing their emotional energy. The repeater, installed in key locations around the world, from Kiev to Sydney, looked like a network of shining antennas that amplified his voice to cosmic proportions. Although these technologies were experimental, they gave the triad hope for success, but their creation required incredible efforts and coordination between countries, which in itself was a miracle in an era of disunity. The scientists worked around the clock, sacrificing sleep and health to complete the devices on time. The first operation took place in space, 100,000 kilometers from Earth, where Apophis, 2 was already visible to the naked eye, shining with an ominous red light, like the eye of an ancient god. The Gravitron, standing on board the orbital module created by an international coalition of NASA, Roscosmos and ESA resources, created a gravitational field that slowed down the asteroid, as if trapping it in an invisible net. His eyes shone purple, and his hands were shaking with tension, but he held on, knowing that everything depended on his actions. His mind was focused, and he could see every crack on the asteroid's surface, as if gravity had become his eyes. He could feel the asteroid resisting, its mass struggling with his will, but he clenched his fists, forcing space to obey. The energy magnate, floating in outer space in a special spacesuit enhanced by his own energy, released a series of energy waves that pierced the asteroid's crust, exposing its pulsating core, similar to a black heart, emitting red flashes. His dome protected them from the debris, and his voice boomed through the connection, "This is the greatest blow in history." Its blue sparks illuminated the darkness of space, inspiring their team, which monitored the operation from Earth via telemetry. The spirit of unity, being on Earth in the control center, surrounded by screens, repeaters and scientists, addressed the world through a global broadcast that was broadcast in all languages via satellites and terrestrial networks. Your faith is our strength. Give us your hope, your love, your will to live. His words, imbued with psychokinetic energy, penetrated the hearts of billions. From New York to Nairobi, from Moscow to Mexico City, people rose from their knees, their fear replaced by determination. They took to the streets holding hands, prayed in temples, mosques and synagogues, and sang songs about hope, from ancient hymns to modern hits. In schools, children painted posters with the triad, in hospitals, patients whispered words of support, and in villages, people lit bonfires to show that they were with them. The energy of their faith, directed by Zelensky, created a psychokinetic impulse, which, reinforced by the Trump dome, crashed into the core of the asteroid. The core cracked, emitting a blinding flash that momentarily eclipsed the stars, but the asteroid continued to move, its dark energy resisting, like a living being defending its mission. The world rejoiced, but the Triad knew that this was only the first step. They returned to Earth to regroup, realizing that the asteroid is stronger than they expected, and that its core hides even more secrets. They spent the night analyzing the data and realized that the core was protected by a dark field that needed to be neutralized. Apophis, too, as it turned out, was equipped with a protective mechanism, a dark field created by the Titans, which neutralized their abilities. The field amplified the psychotronic waves, spreading panic on Earth and suppressing the forces of the Triad. It caused hallucinations, making people have nightmares about the end of the world, burning cities, collapsing skyscrapers, dying loved ones. These visions undermined the will to resist, and even the most persistent began to doubt. During the second operation, closer to the Moon's orbit, where the asteroid was already 384,000 kilometers from Earth, they were trapped. The gravitron couldn't create a field, his body was shaking, and his mind was filled with images of the destroyed Earth, burning forests, flooded cities, screaming children. His heart was beating erratically and blood was flowing from his nose, but he clenched his teeth, trying to break through the field. The energy magnate tried to break through the field with waves, but his hands only sparked, and his face was distorted from impotence. He screamed with rage, but his energy was fading, as if sucked out by an invisible force. The spirit of unity lost touch with humanity, his voice became hoarse, and his golden eyes dimmed. He could feel billions of hearts moving away, sinking into despair, and his own heart was clenching in pain. It seemed that defeat was inevitable, and the asteroid, shining with an ominous red light, was approaching the Earth, ready to fulfill its mission of destruction. Their team on the ground, following the operation, began to lose hope, and even the scientists, usually restrained, could not hide their tears. At that moment, Zelensky, remembering his theatrical roots and years on stage, decided to play the most important role in his life. He connected to the asteroid's communication system, hacked by an international team of hackers from Anonymous, who worked in conjunction with the cyber special forces of Russia and the United States. Using a repeater, he transmitted a message, pretending that humanity was giving up. "We are unworthy, spare us. We acknowledge your greatness, O Titans." His voice, full of despair and sincerity, was so convincing that the AI controlling the asteroid hesitated, analyzing the data. His algorithms, programmed to destroy resisting civilizations, began to malfunction when faced with unexpected behavior. Zelensky, standing in the control center, closed his eyes, feeling his voice reach not only the AI, but also the billions of people who listened to him. He put all his empathy and faith into his words, imagining the faces of the children he saw in the destroyed cities and the mothers who prayed for their loved ones. His team, watching him, held their breath, and the scientists monitoring the data noticed that the dark field began to weaken, as if the AI was distracted by analyzing the message. This distraction gave Putin and Trump precious seconds. The gravitron, summoning all its will, created a gravitational anomaly that temporarily disabled the dark field. His body was shaking, blood was streaming from his nose, and his heart was racing, but he held on, knowing that this was their last chance. His mind, enhanced by the power of the Titans, was clear, and he could see the space around the asteroid shrinking under his will. He whispered to himself, "Not now, not today," as if defying fate itself. His hands, clenched into fists, shone purple, and the air around him trembled with tension. The energy magnate unleashed a series of amplified waves on the core, destroying its protective layers. His cry, "This is the greatest explosion," echoed through space, inspiring their team, who watched the operation with bated breath. His hands were shining blue, and his face was contorted with tension, but he didn't stop, putting all his energy into each blow. Its dome, shining brighter than ever, protected them from debris that flew away in zero gravity, creating a chaotic dance in space. The spirit of unity, having reconnected with humanity, delivered the final speech, broadcast in all languages through repeaters that were operating at maximum capacity. "We are humanity, and we are not giving up. We are fighting for our home, for our children, for our future. Give me your strength, your love, your hope." His words, enhanced by psychokinetic energy, united billions of hearts. People all over the world, from farmers in India to programmers in Silicon Valley, from fishermen in Norway to teachers in Brazil, have felt his call. They held hands, sang, prayed, their emotions merged into a single stream. In schools, children sang hymns, in hospitals, patients whispered words of support, and in villages, people lit bonfires to show that they were with the triad. The energy of their faith, channeled by Zelensky, created a psychokinetic shock that, synchronized with Putin's gravitational field and Trump's waves, crashed into the core of the asteroid. The core exploded, emitting a blinding flash that lit up space, visible even from Earth during the day. Apophis, too, shattered into billions of harmless fragments, which burned up in the atmosphere, turning into a rain of stars shining over the planet. The sky cleared, and the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating the victory of humanity. The Earth breathed a sigh of relief, and the billions of people who looked up at the sky felt that their faith had been rewarded. The Earth rejoiced, glorifying the triad of salvation. People took to the streets, hugging each other, crying with joy and chanting the names of their heroes. Spontaneous celebrations were held in New York, Moscow, Kiev, Tokyo, Cairo, and Rio, where people danced in the open air, thanking fate and their leaders. Social media was flooded with star shower videos, and the hashtag #Triadasave became the most popular in history, garnering billions of views in a matter of hours. Users shared memes where Putin squeezes an asteroid with his gaze, Trump stands in a shining dome, and Zelensky soars with golden eyes, channeling the energy of humanity. Artists created murals depicting the triad, and musicians composed songs celebrating their feat. The triad returned to Earth, greeted as gods. Putin, Trump, and Zelensky, despite their physical exhaustion, stood shoulder to shoulder on the podium in New York, in front of the UN building, where they were greeted by millions. Their faces, tired but full of pride, shone in the spotlight. Putin, restrained but with a slight smile, spoke about discipline and unity. Trump, waving his arms, shouted, "We made it great." The best victory in history. Zelensky, whose eyes shone gold and his voice trembled with emotion, thanked humanity for its faith. They announced the creation of the Global Alliance, an international organization aimed at protecting the planet from space threats and developing technologies based on Titan energy. The headquarters of the alliance, built on neutral territory in Iceland, on the site of geothermal springs, became a symbol of a new world where nations work together, not against each other. The building, designed as a shining dome, reflected the spirit of the triad: strength, protection, and unity. Vladimir Putin, like the gravitron, has become a symbol of wisdom and control. He founded an academy in Moscow, called the Institute of Gravity, where he trained a new generation to control the forces of nature, using gravity for science, construction, and peace. His purple eyes softened, and he began to inspire not only strategists, but also dreamers, talking about how gravity can help humanity reach the stars. He also oversaw projects to create gravity thrusters that could revolutionize space travel, reducing flight times to Mars to weeks and opening the way to other planets. His lectures, filled with deep reflections, gathered thousands of listeners, and his words that strength is in control and wisdom is in unity became the motto of the new generation. He spent time with young scientists, helping them develop new theories, and even began writing memoirs, where for the first time he openly spoke about his doubts during the mission. His book, Gravity of Fate, became a bestseller, although he claimed that he wrote it for history, not for fame. He also became a mentor to young leaders, teaching them the art of strategic thinking, but now with an emphasis on collaboration rather than competition. As an energy magnate, Donald Trump devoted himself to global projects, from protecting cities with domes to building space stations, which he called the greatest in history. His charisma and greatest shows inspired millions, and his Make Space Great campaign brought together scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. He personally oversaw the construction of Trump Orbit, the first commercial station protected by his energy domes, which became a center for space tourism and research. His energy, despite its excessive theatricality, infected millions, and he became an icon of a new era of progress. He also launched charity projects aimed at rebuilding destroyed regions, arguing that greatness is helping others. His Greatness for All Foundation has funded schools, hospitals, and environmental projects, although he has not missed an opportunity to remind that these are the greatest initiatives in history. His posts on X continued to garner millions of likes, but now they were dedicated not only to his victories, but also to the stories of the people he helped. He became the star of the new reality show, Space with Trump, where he showed how his technology was changing the world, and even invited Putin and Zelensky as guests, which delighted the audience. Vladimir Zelensky, as a spirit of unity, traveled the world inspiring young people to unity and empathy. He founded schools called Academies of Unity, where they taught not only science, but also the art of empathy, convinced that this was the key to a world without wars. His programs to rebuild destroyed regions, from Ukraine to Indonesia, united people of different cultures, proving that his gift can change the world even without psychokinesis. His golden eyes became a symbol of hope, and his speeches, which raised millions, inspired a new generation of leaders. He created a global network of youth activists who continued his mission, spreading the idea of unity. His motto, "One Heart, One Strength," has become the slogan of the Alliance and is engraved on the walls of its headquarters. He spent time with refugees, children, and families affected by disasters, and his sincerity touched even the most cynical. His book, The Power of Unity, written after the mission, became a worldwide bestseller, inspiring millions. He also became an ambassador for peace, speaking at the UN and other international organizations, calling for cooperation and mutual understanding. His emotional speeches made the audience stand up and applaud, and his words that every person is a part of our strength became a mantra for a new generation. Their friendship, tempered in the struggle, has become a legend. They met at the Alliance's headquarters, sharing memories of the battle, arguing about the future, and laughing at Trump's jokes. These meetings, full of warmth and mutual respect, reminded them that their strength lies in their differences. Political differences have not disappeared, but they have learned to see each other not as rivals, but as partners whose unique qualities complement each other. They often joked that their superpowers were a metaphor for their leadership. Putin governs, Trump inspires, Zelensky unites. They began an annual tradition of gathering in Iceland on the anniversary of the victory to honor the memory of those who helped them and discuss new challenges. These meetings were broadcast live, and millions of people watched as the three leaders, now friends, hugged and raised glasses to humanity. The Earth, saved by their hands, has entered an era of peace, progress, and stargazing. New technologies based on the energy of the Titans allowed humanity to begin colonizing the moon, restore ecosystems, and build cities protected by domes. Gravity thrusters developed under Putin's leadership have shortened space flight time, opening the way to Mars and the asteroid belt. Trump's energy technologies have become the basis for new energy sources, replacing fossil fuels and halting the climate crisis. Zelensky's psychokinetic repeaters have been used for global education and inspiration, allowing people to exchange ideas and dreams. The Global Alliance has become the new UN, but more effective, with a focus on science, cooperation, and protecting the planet. His projects, from cleaning up the oceans to creating orbital farms, have changed the world, making it more sustainable and fair. And although the cosmos kept its secrets, humanity knew that it had heroes who could protect it from any threat. The triad of salvation has become a symbol of the fact that even in the darkest times unity can overcome any chaos. Their names, Gravitron, Energy Magnate, and the Spirit of Solidarity, have gone down in history as beacons of hope for future generations, reminding us that humanity's strength lies in its ability to unite in the face of the impossible. Their statues, erected in Iceland, depicted them standing shoulder to shoulder, with their faces turned to the stars, and the inscription, "Unity is our strength." School children all over the world studied their feat, and their story inspired new generations to dream of stars, work together and believe in themselves. The Earth, which had once stood on the brink of destruction, now looked to the future with hope, knowing that its fate was in the hands of those who knew how to unite.